who's the person whom I ask and say, please secure this? Okay. For me, it turned out to be a trick and a multi-layered question because often the responsibility is passed around. I would look at it as the project manager who is the first person who contributes to the security of the product, but he says, look, let the auditor take a look at it and say whether it's okay or not, and if the auditor has goofed up, it's not my problem. Okay, the auditor did not do well. If he had pointed out, I would have taken care of it. Then there comes a whole bunch of policies and guidelines which says the corresponding CSIRT organization, the security incident response team, that needs to be there. They are the ones who ought to have caught it, No. The guys should never have installed Windows XP from their own CDs, and that is where the virus came from. So, whenever I try to look at where is the first person, who is the first person whom I go to and say, please start securing your keys, it turns out to be a bit of a problematic question. Okay? As of now, today, the best document that I have, okay, is the crisis management plan that is given to us. Unfortunately, right from the name, okay, it sort of conveys a different impression. Okay? We don't want to start planning for a crisis and say that a crisis plan is responsible for the day-to-day operations. Because of the very name, nobody is really interested in looking at it other than me, which is a little bit of a problem. Okay? As it turns out, it is actually an explanatory education material. The crisis management plan in the government is a primer of sorts on what sorts of threats we face and what needs to be done, as well as a little bit of a governance structure. Okay? An education primer with a government structure, does it constitute a crisis management plan? I do not know. Okay? But if I do want to do it, and if I do want to ask the project manager, like I already told you, he is only interested. Oftentimes, the project manager is not a government guy. Okay? And even though internally we do have the corresponding equivalent person, what we call as nodal officers. It is the vendor's project manager, and he just wants to get done and run away as quickly as possible. If there is a policy that you must have a security audit and it must pass, he is only interested in passing it as quickly as he can. Okay? And the policies themselves, the minimum guidelines that they want to do, are also written by consultants who are not grounded on to my specific needs. They write cut and paste documents, holy grail documents, which ought to have been done at various levels of maturity and not exactly easy for you to apply for your home security guidelines that were written for someplace else. Your specific local requirements, your threat perceptions are not taken into consideration. How you store your valuables, how valuable they are not taken into consideration. So these policies, project managers and auditors put together create very interesting situations for us. One of the situations that we have is to say, yes, there is a policy here which says that all your critical applications must go into the data centers. Boom, everybody comes up with very innovative things. No, my project has its own budget, we'll create our own data center. Okay? I have, out of 5 or 6 different projects that I have looked after from the inception stage, managed to push only one into my data center. Every other project wants to create its own data center. Okay? Otherwise, we cite technical and management issues. Not only the guy who doesn't want to come into the data center operator himself doesn't want this guy to come. I've had a very peculiar situation where my data center operator says, yes, you do have a firewall, you do have an IDS, IPS, but this is not for those projects which are coming in co-location mode. So they got to make their own arrangements. I do have in file at this point in time, which is a very unfortunate situation, I commented on it and we're correcting it, is that we have a security policy for our data center, I'm sorry to say, that says that any co-located equipment is not to be considered as taking the data center security policies under consideration. That means that data center security policies do not apply to it, they are governed by something else. We will not give you our firewall, we will not let you use our IPS, but that's what the policy is. We will put you in the DMZ and nothing applies to you. I told them that considering that our data center started off with very small amount of equipment to begin with, very quickly we built up wherein the DMZ equipment, that is for which the security policies don't apply, turned out to be 90%. and we are securing the rest of the 10%. So we come up with very innovative reasons, whether you are a vendor, whether you are a project manager, or whether you are a data center operator. Other interesting scenarios. People say your application must be security audited, otherwise I will not let it in. So this was a fantastic stand that was taken by our government composite team, consisting of our NIC folks and a couple of other agencies from the government. And so what happens? First thing they say is that, no, ours is not an important project, we don't want even want to run. So a bulk of the pieces were posted outside. Finally, when we do drag them in, kicking into the data center, they try to find the most convenient security auditor that is around. Okay, and say, kaise bhi kara do, pass karana. We have had a situation wherein one auditor came and complained, sir, they don't want us to submit our audit report directly to you, they want to see it first. There have been situations wherein when we did conduct some audits, they were prevented from submitting the full audit report directly. So people come up with a lot of interesting pieces. Okay. Some of the good things that I heard, both in the question answer as well as in the initial talk of Dr. Rai here, is that, yes, he talked about setting up of a SOC. Okay. This has been a sorely missing piece in many of our strategies. Okay. We do need security operations centers. Is one enough national center? Or do we need more at the state level also? I think there is no easy answer to this question. But when we did propose to establish a SOC, boom came the answer from directly saying, you don't need to do any such thing. We're doing everything at the center. All you need to do is to follow our orders. So a particular proposal that I sent to NEGD was thrown back, saying that no, you shouldn't be doing all this stuff. Okay? So we do have a peculiar situation wherein the policies are written by consultants who have no idea of what my assets are and what my real needs are and what my threat assessment is. Okay? The assets are being created by project managers who want to run away as quickly as they can. They only want to meet the minimum compliance, find a convenient auditor and do it away. Okay? Our assets are being run by folks who also are looking at their profits. I believe this profitability part came up in an earlier discussion also. So, and then Dr. Rai very rightly pointed out, we do have a serious situation wherein we need to build the skills that we need to do, and those skills are woefully inadequate. Okay? At this point in time, the only good thing that I can say we have going for us is that we do have a few NIC folks who are pretty good. Okay? Where we are lacking at this point in time is that they're all focused significantly on the infrastructure side, network security, firewalls, IDSS, IPS, system security, and so forth. AppSec is getting a little bit of a short shrift. So a CISO's job in the government of protecting the data, which is what it is about, and protecting the national assets is a little bit of a complicated piece. Okay? As long as we are focused in audit-driven stuff, okay, as long as we are focused on writing policies from ivory towers unconcerned by realities, as long as we don't have solid advice flowing in to the policymakers, to the authorities, we will continue to have these issues. We will have people saying that we need to put in the latest IDM pieces, IDM solutions, the latest threat intelligence pieces that need to be brought in, the latest encryption and key management solutions that are being talked about. Okay? But each of those pieces will not together, even if I bring them all together, will not serve the purpose unless we bring in a little bit of, let us say, holistic thought process about how state governments will need to go about protecting their assets. Okay? The kind of realities that we need to face with, we've already talked about, so let me not go further. I'll just go directly to the crux of what I want to talk about. I propose an 8-point framework, okay, wherein we can start looking at not just the security audit as the cornerstone of our security principles or our actions. I want to talk about, let us say, not the crisis management plan as a thought process, okay, as the starting point. Rather, look at 3 different dimensions. One is a continuous dimension, about 4 different activities that need to be handled continuously. Continuous vulnerability management, continuous security monitoring, continuous awareness and education programs for people to understand that they are part of the attack vector, and continuous platform assurance. That means the hardware platforms, the software platforms that I'm using, am I assured that they're trustworthy? Okay. Many of us have looked at the platform assurance in a different way. This is probably a different way of saying the same thing. So I just want to take a moment to explain that yes, whether it is the operating system, whether it is the laptop, whether it is the server, do we trust that there are no backdoors in it? Different speakers have spoken differently about this too. So this is the 4 elements of continuous activities that we need to have. Okay. Then, one periodic element, okay, of penetration testing. Okay. I don't want to call it security auditing, even though many times people understand security auditing to be penetration testing also. Okay. When I saw for several of our projects, penetration testing scope or the security audit scope being drawn up, it did not satisfy me from a penetration testing point of view. Some of the biggest, let us say, vectors of attack are excluded from a security audit point of view. I believe some of you will empathize with this. He is a social engineering attack, trying to call the call center and trying to subvert it. Part of the penetration testing or the security auditing scope of any of the projects that you know. None of the projects that I know, whether it is in GOI or in the state governments, have this as a possibility. Do they understand that it is possible to come from, let us say, a government office Wi-Fi? Please? Okay. No, it is not included in the scope because oftentimes governments are not allowed to even admit that they're operating Wi-Fi in their offices. I believe there is a guideline somewhere. NIC guys do say that it is also not exactly a guideline, it is an enforcement piece, that there ought not to be any Wi-Fi networks in the government offices. I can believe, I fully appreciate where we are coming from. That is exactly how we feel. However, even though such Wi-Fi pieces do operate, they are not part of the security audit scope. My office, my own office where I operate from, is on the statewide area network. From my office presence, I access my data center. I have, of course, being a security officer, strict procedures and strict monitoring in place, but I know that there are hundreds of offices that are also connected onto the SWAN. And these offices are not part of any security audit. So periodically, okay, we need to keep doing this penetration testing. And then the last 3 parts, the threat intel, forensics and incident response pieces, and malware and intel research are all need to be part of a holistic piece. I've consciously not put in physical security, personal security, or BCP DR. I believe they will all actually get in as part of a holistic risk management approach to protecting the assets. This is all that I wanted to present to you today from my perspective.